High Admiral Zexthor of the Scylark's Dominion stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest, watching the blue-green planet grow larger in the main viewport. His silver-scaled skin reflected the soft glow of tactical displays, each one confirming what his scouts had reported: a seemingly primitive civilization, barely reaching beyond their own moon. Another simple conquest, he mused, his four-fingered hand adjusting the ceremonial cape that marked his status as the Dominion's most successful expansion commander. 57 systems had fallen to his fleets. Earth would be 58. High Admiral, his second-in-command, Commander Vix, approached with a data tablet. Final analysis of their defensive capabilities complete. They possess approximately 300 primitive satellites, a small lunar base, and a handful of chemical propulsion vessels. Their most advanced weapons appear to be nuclear-tipped missiles. Zexthor's mouth tendrils curled in amusement. Prepare the standard first contact protocol. Let's see how quickly they surrender when they witness real power. He paused, studying a strange reading on one of the displays. What's this energy signature from their lunar base? Mining operations, according to our analysis, Vix replied promptly. They extract helium-3 in small quantities, though quite inefficiently. The massive Dominion fleet moved into position. 5,000 warships arranged in the Dominion's traditional crescent of dominance formation. Each vessel was a kilometer long, bristling with quantum weaponry and protected by shields that could withstand the force of a small sun. Broadcasting now, High Admiral, the communications officer announced. The main screen flickered to life, showing a chamber filled with human representatives. Their diversity of appearance was notable: different colors, sizes, ages. In the center stood a woman with dark skin and silver-streaked hair, wearing what appeared to be formal diplomatic attire. People of Earth, Zexthor began, using his most commanding tone. I am High Admiral Zexthor of the Scylark's Dominion. Your world has been chosen for incorporation into our empire. Surrender now, and your transition to productive citizenship will be smooth. Resist, and we will demonstrate why no civilization has ever successfully opposed us. The woman in the center smiled. It wasn't the fearful, submissive expression Zexthor was accustomed to seeing. There was something else in that smile. Amusement. High Admiral, she responded, I am Director Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Council. While we appreciate your introduction, I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. Earth is not available for incorporation into your empire. Zexthor's tendrils twitched in irritation. They always tried diplomacy first. Director Chen, I don't think you comprehend your situation. My fleet carries enough firepower to reduce your cities to ash. Your primitive defenses cannot. Primitive? Chen interrupted, still smiling. An interesting assumption. Tell me, Admiral, did any of your advanced scouts manage to penetrate beyond the Kuiper Belt without our permission? The question caught him off guard. What do you mean, permission? High Admiral. Vix suddenly called out, real fear in his voice. The lunar base, it's changing. Zexthor turned to the viewport just in time to see the surface of Earth's moon seemingly crack apart. Massive sections of what they had thought was natural terrain began shifting, revealing vast hangar bays and weapon emplacements. From these openings emerged ships, hundreds of them, then thousands, each larger than his own flagship. Impossible, he whispered. Our scans showed exactly what we wanted them to show. Chen finished for him. You see, Admiral, humanity learned long ago that appearing primitive and vulnerable tends to draw out the bullies of the galaxy, and we do so enjoy teaching bullies lessons. New alarms blared across the bridge as more signatures appeared, these emerging from what had appeared to be simple asteroid fields. The humans hadn't just hidden ships in their moon. They had transformed their entire solar system into a massive defensive network. Your species has made a terrible mistake, Zexthor snarled, trying to maintain his composure. All ships, battle formations, show these deceptive primitives the true might of the Dominion. You still don't understand, Chen said, her smile now gone. We're not primitive, Admiral. We're the reason primitive species get to develop in peace. We're the wall that stops empires like yours from preying on younger civilizations. And you just volunteered your fleet for a demonstration of why that wall has never fallen. The first human vessel to reach weapons range was nearly invisible to their sensors, a sleek, dark shape that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. It fired a single shot, a beam of energy unlike anything in the Dominion's database. 5 of Zexthor's ships simply ceased to exist. Not exploded, not broke apart. They vanished, converted to their base atomic particles, and scattered across space. That, Chen explained calmly, was one shot from one of our smaller vessels. Would you like to see what our actual warships can do? Or would you prefer to discuss the terms of your surrender? For the first time in his long career of conquest, High Admiral Zexthor felt true fear. He had not found Earth. Earth had allowed him to find it. And he was beginning to understand why no one had ever heard from the other empires that had doubtlessly made the same mistake. The bridge of the Eternal Conquest erupted into chaos as tactical displays flooded with new contacts. What the Scilarks had dismissed as debris fields around Earth's orbital lanes were transforming, revealing themselves as carefully disguised defense platforms. Each installation bristled with weapons that defied their sensor classification attempts. High Admiral, Commander Vix's voice cracked with tension. We're detecting quantum signature duplications. Their vessels appear to be operating in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. Zexthor watched in growing horror as the human fleet approached. Their ships moved with impossible grace, some seemingly phasing in and out of normal spacetime. The vessels varied in design, but all shared the same sleek, predatory appearance. Dark hulls that absorbed both light and scanning beams, making exact counts impossible. Launch the drone swarms, he commanded, falling back on standard Dominion tactics. All ships begin emergency power-up of main weapon systems. Millions of combat drones poured from the Dominion fleet's launch bays, filling space with a glittering cloud of automated weapons. Each drone carried enough firepower to level a small city, and their sheer numbers had overwhelmed every defense system the Dominion had ever encountered. Director Chen's image reappeared on the main screen. Interesting choice, Admiral. We were hoping you'd deploy your drones. Commander Williams, would you care to demonstrate? A new figure appeared, a young human male in what appeared to be a casual uniform. With pleasure, Director. Initiating quantum entanglement field. A ripple of energy, invisible to normal sensors, but felt as a shudder through the fabric of space itself, expanded from the human fleet. Where it touched the drone swarm, something remarkable happened. Instead of destroying the drones, the energy wave simply claimed them. Thank you for the generous donation, Williams grinned. Your drone AI architecture is quite primitive, but we'll find some use for them, perhaps as training targets for our cadets. Zexthor watched in disbelief as his entire drone force turned around, now under human control. But the humans didn't use them to attack. Instead, the drones formed themselves into an enormous three-dimensional image of a human hand, making what appeared to be a rude gesture. Impossible, Vix whispered. Our drone control systems are quantum encrypted. They can't be hacked. Quantum encryption. Chen raised an eyebrow. Oh, you mean that rudimentary system based on particle spin states. We moved beyond that level of security about 300 years ago. Would you like to see what real quantum control systems look like? The space between the fleets suddenly bloomed with new signatures, smaller than ships, larger than drones. They moved with organic fluidity, their forms shifting and flowing like liquid metal. These are our Nexus units, Chen explained. Semi-autonomous quantum constructs that exist partially outside normal spacetime. They're particularly effective against conventional warships. Would you care for a demonstration? Before Zexthor could respond, one of the Nexus units approached his third-line destroyer squadron. It didn't fire any weapons. It simply passed through their shields as if they didn't exist, its quantum field disrupting the very atomic bonds of hull plating. 8 destroyers literally fell apart, their components separating as if being dissected by an invisible surgeon. "That's enough playing around," a new voice cut in. The tactical display lit up with a massive new contact emerging from Earth's atmosphere. Unlike the sleek predators of the main fleet, this vessel was enormous and angular, its hull covered in geometric patterns that hurt the eyes to look at directly. "Admiral, meet the EDS Humanities Reminder," Chen said. "Our diplomatic vessel, you might say." Captain Marcus Drake has a certain flair for handling first-contact situations that have turned hostile. The massive ship's presence seemed to distort space around it, and Zexthor's sensors simply gave up trying to analyze its capabilities. Warning indicators flashed across every console on his bridge. The vessel's power signature was greater than some small stars. "Hi, Admiral." Captain Drake's voice carried the casual confidence of someone who knew they held absolute superiority. "I'm going to make this simple. Your fleet is currently surrounded by our phase gate network. One word from me, and you'll all be taking a very quick trip to our containment facility near Proxima Centauri. Whether your ships arrive intact depends entirely on your next decision." Zexthor's tendrils twitched as he considered his options. His fleet, the pride of the Dominion, 5,000 ships that had never known defeat, was effectively powerless. The humans hadn't even begun to show their full capabilities, and already they had neutralized his most effective weapons. "You're bluffing," he tried, his voice lacking conviction. "No civilization could hide this level of technology. Our scouts would have detected." "Your scouts," Chen interrupted, "like all the others, saw exactly what we wanted them to see. Earth isn't just a planet, Admiral. It's a trap. A very carefully baited trap that we use to identify and neutralize expansionist empires before they can threaten developing civilizations under our protection." As if to emphasize her point, the geometric patterns on the Humanities Reminder began to glow, and space itself seemed to twist around the vessel. The stars visible through the bridge viewport appeared to bend and distort, and a deep thrumming vibration penetrated even the Eternal Conquest's best inertial dampeners. "Last chance, Admiral," Drake announced. "Surrender, or I'll show you why we named this ship Humanities Reminder." After all, some species need to be reminded why humanity was chosen as the galaxy's guardians. High Admiral Zexthor's pride finally crumbled under the weight of reality. His mighty fleet, the spear tip of the Sci-Lark's dominion, hung motionless in space, surrounded by technology that shouldn't exist. The humans hadn't just outmaneuvered them. They had rendered the Dominion's most advanced weapon systems obsolete before the battle even began. "You leave me no choice," he growled, his tendrils writhing with barely contained rage. "All ships, execute Protocol Omega. Authorization. Zexthor Prime Override." Commander Vixa's eyes widened in shock. "High Admiral, Protocol Omega hasn't been used since the Centauri Rebellion. The collateral damage will be acceptable," Zexthor snapped. "Better to die in glory than live in shame." Across the Dominion fleet, weapon systems began charging beyond safety limits. Shield generators spun up to critical levels, their containment fields starting to crack. Every ship became a potential supernova, ready to detonate with enough force to scorch half the solar system. "Fascinating choice." Captain Drake's voice carried a note of genuine interest. "Commander Chen, are you seeing these power readings?" "Indeed," Chen replied, studying something off-screen. "They're overloading their cores to create a cascading quantum detonation. Quite impressive. Actually, the blast radius would reach Mars." Their casual discussion of impending destruction infuriated Zexthor even more. "You seem awfully calm about your impending destruction, humans." "Oh, that?" Drake chuckled. "We detected the energy buildup the moment you started. Our quantum field has already contained it. In fact, Lieutenant Park, would you mind demonstrating?" A new figure appeared on screen. A young human woman whose uniform indicated some kind of technical role. "Of course, Captain. Initiating quantum energy transfer." Now, the building energy in the Dominion fleet suddenly began to drain away. Not violently, not explosively, but smoothly, as if being siphoned by an invisible force. On his tactical display, Zexthor watched in disbelief as the power levels of his ships dropped to minimal operational levels. "You see," Park explained, her tone that of a teacher addressing a slow student, "your quantum containment technology is based on forcing energy into artificial boundary states. We mastered free-form quantum manipulation centuries ago. Your power cores are like cups of water trying to threaten an ocean." "Impossible," Vix whispered. "No civilization could possess this level of energy control. The mathematical complexity alone would require computing systems that exist partially outside conventional spacetime." Chen finished for him. "Yes, we developed those about the same time we established the Guardian Protocol. Speaking of which, the space around Earth rippled, and new ships began emerging. But not from hangars or hidden bases. These vessels simply appeared, transitioning from whatever dimension they had been waiting in. They were smaller than the humanities reminder, but each one radiated power that made Zexthor's flagship look like a children's toy. Meet the Guardian fleet," Drake announced proudly. "Or rather, a small portion of it. Most of our ships are busy maintaining peace across roughly a quarter of the galaxy. These are just the ones we keep around for special occasions, like teaching expansionist empires why they should leave developing civilizations alone." The new vessels took up formation around the Dominion fleet, their hulls shifting and flowing like liquid metal. Some seemed to exist in multiple places at once, while others appeared to bend light and space around them in impossible ways. "Now then," Chen's voice hardened, "let's discuss the terms of your surrender, and more importantly, the reparations the Sci-Lark's Dominion will be paying to the civilizations you've conquered. We have detailed records of every atrocity, every act of aggression, every world you've stripped of resources." "You can't," Zexthor began, but Chen cut him off. "We can, we will, and you're going to help us. Your empire's technology base is now approximately 3 centuries behind ours. Your entire fleet's combined firepower couldn't scratch the paint on one of our escort vessels. And most importantly, you're about to learn why most advanced civilizations in this arm of the galaxy go very quiet and very cooperative when they hear the name Earth." As if to emphasize her point, one of the Guardian vessels casually reached out with a beam of coherent light. Where it touched a Dominion destroyer, the ship's matter simply rearranged itself. In moments, the mighty warship had been transformed into a perfect sphere of inert materials. "That," Drake explained, "was our most basic matter manipulation technology. Would you like to see what our weapons can do when we're actually trying to cause damage? Or would you prefer to start discussing how you're going to help us restore freedom to the worlds you've conquered?" In that moment, watching his mighty fleet hanging helpless in space, surrounded by technology that bordered on magic, High Admiral Zexthor finally understood. Earth wasn't just another world to conquer. It wasn't even just a highly advanced civilization. It was a guardian, a protector, a force that had been watching and waiting, allowing lesser empires to reveal their true nature before stepping in to correct their mistakes. And the Sci-Lark's Dominion had just become their latest object lesson in why expansion through conquest was no longer acceptable in this galaxy. The holographic display in the Eternal Conquest's conference room showed a galaxy map unlike anything Zexthor had ever seen. Sectors he had believed empty teemed with developing civilizations. Regions marked as uninhabitable on Dominion charts contained thriving worlds under Earth's protection. Everything he had known about galactic civilization was proving to be carefully crafted fiction. 372. Director Chen said, studying his reaction. "That's how many emerging civilizations currently exist under our protection. Species taking their first steps into space, developing their first faster-than-light drives, discovering the fundamental forces that bind reality together. They sat in what had been his private command chamber, now transformed by human technology into a secure conference facility. Commander Vix stood behind him, mandated to witness this revelation as the Dominion's second-in-command. But the quantum barriers, Vix protested weakly. The natural boundaries that make interstellar empire impossible beyond certain scales. Our scientists proved. Your scientists proved exactly what we wanted them to prove, Captain Drake interrupted, materializing in the room through what appeared to be a localized space-time fold. Those natural barriers are artificial constructs, maintained by our quantum field network. We use them to compartmentalize space, preventing any single empire from growing too large or powerful. The map shifted, showing the true extent of human influence. What Zexthor had believed to be random background radiation was actually an intricate web of quantum fields, monitoring and controlling the flow of space-time itself. We were like you once, Chen continued, her voice softening with memory. Aggressive, expansionist, convinced of our own superiority. Then we encountered them. The hologram change, showing images that made both Scilark's officers recoil. Vast geometric shapes that hurt the mind to look at, technology so advanced it appeared to violate the basic laws of physics. The precursors, Drake explained. They had watched humanity's development for millennia, testing us, challenging us. When we finally reached a sufficient level of technological and ethical development, they gave us a choice. Become the guardians of this galaxy's younger species, or watch them fall prey to empires like yours. But your technology, Zexthor stammered, the level of advancement required, was their gift to us. Chen finished. But more importantly, it was a responsibility. We learned to hide our true nature, to appear primitive and vulnerable. We became the bait that draws out the predators, allowing us to identify and neutralize threats to developing civilizations. Lieutenant Park appeared next to Drake, her presence accompanied by a subtle distortion in reality. Show them the progression protocol, Director. The hologram shifted again, displaying thousands of worlds in various stages of development. Some showed early industrial civilizations, others were taking their first steps into space, and still others were approaching the technological threshold that would earn them the truth about humanity's role. Every civilization you see here is being guided, protected, and monitored, Park explained. When they reach the appropriate level of development, both technological and ethical, they're given the choice to join us as guardians or to continue their development under our protection. And the ones who choose wrong, Vix asked quietly, are contained, Drake said simply. Like you're about to be. The hologram zoomed in on a sector near Proxima Centauri, showing what appeared to be a massive artificial structure. Welcome to your new home, Admiral. The Proxima Containment Sphere. Don't worry, you'll have company. Every other expansionist empire that's discovered our little trap is there, learning the error of their ways. You can't just imprison an entire civilization, Zexthor protested. We can, we have, and we will continue to do so, Chen corrected him. But imprisonment isn't the goal. Rehabilitation is. Your people will learn, as others have, that there are better ways to exist in this galaxy than conquest and subjugation. The hologram showed scenes from within the containment sphere, former empire builders working alongside their one-time enemies, learning to create rather than destroy, to cooperate rather than conquer. Your fleet will be dismantled, Drake continued. Its materials repurposed for peaceful applications. Your technology will be reduced to a level appropriate for your ethical development. And most importantly, you'll begin making amends to the civilizations you've harmed. Why show us all this? Vix asked suddenly. Why reveal the true extent of your power and influence? Chen smiled, but there was a weight of centuries in her expression. Because understanding is the first step toward change. You're not the first empire to fall into our trap, and you won't be the last. But every civilization we've contained has eventually emerged better for the experience. Some have even joined us as guardians. And if we refuse, Zexthor demanded, a final spark of defiance flaring. The room's reality seemed to flicker, and suddenly they were somewhere else, or perhaps the somewhere else had been brought to them. They stood in what appeared to be a vast chamber, stretching beyond the limits of perception. All around them, impossible geometries shifted and flowed, and beings of pure energy moved with purpose through fields of quantum probability. This, Drake said quietly, is a small portion of humanity's true technological level. What you've seen so far, our ships, our weapons, our quantum manipulation, that's what we're willing to show to species at your level of development. Care to guess what our actual capabilities might be? For the first time in his life, High Admiral Zexthor, conqueror of 57 systems, felt truly small. The galaxy he had thought he understood was a carefully maintained illusion, and humanity wasn't just its guardian. They were its architects. The transfer to the Proxima containment sphere happened in an instant. One moment, the Dominion fleet hung in Earth's orbit. The next, they existed in a space that defied conventional physics. The sphere itself was a marvel of engineering. A Dyson swarm turned inward, its vast internal space home to dozens of former Empire builders learning to coexist. High Admiral Zexthor stood at the viewport of what had been his flagship, now permanently anchored in this impossible space. The Eternal Conquest, once the pride of the Dominion fleet, served as little more than a reminder of past glories and mistakes. It's quite a view, isn't it? Captain Drake materialized beside him, the human's presence barely causing a ripple in reality. Your new neighbors include the Arcturus hegemony, the Centauri Collective, and the Orion Empire. All of them made the same mistake you did. They assumed Earth was a primitive world ripe for conquest. Through the viewport, Zexthor watched ships from various fallen empires moving through the containment sphere's space, but they weren't engaged in military maneuvers or shows of force. Instead, they worked together, constructing and maintaining the vast infrastructure that kept their shared prison functioning. Why maintain this facade? Zexthor asked finally. With your level of technology, you could simply prevent any empire from rising to threaten others. We could. Director Chen agreed, stepping through another fold in space-time. But that's not our role. We're guardians, not tyrants. Every species must be free to develop, to make their own choices and their own mistakes. We simply ensure those mistakes don't harm others. A holographic display materialized, showing the worlds the Dominion had conquered. But now Zexthor saw them through humanity's quantum sensors, revealing the true damage his empire had inflicted. Ecological systems strained to breaking points, indigenous species pushed to extinction, entire civilizations forced into servitude. Your first task, Chen continued, will be to help repair what you've broken. Your people's knowledge of these worlds will be essential in their restoration. Consider it the beginning of your rehabilitation. And if we refuse? Commander Vix asked, though his voice lacked conviction. You won't, Lieutenant Park said, appearing with another subtle distortion of reality. Look around you. Every species here tried resistance at first. But we've had centuries to perfect this process. The containment sphere isn't just a prison. It's a classroom. As if to demonstrate, a group of aliens passed by, former enemies working together to maintain environmental systems. Their cooperation wasn't forced by human technology or oversight. It was born of understanding and shared purpose. You'll start small, Drake explained. Basic maintenance tasks, working alongside species you once considered enemies. You'll learn their stories, understand the damage your empire caused, and gradually begin to help repair it. As you prove yourselves, your responsibilities and privileges will increase. And your technology, Zexthor gestured to his now powerless ships, will be restored gradually as you demonstrate the wisdom to use it responsibly. Chen answered. Some of your neighbors have already reached Level 2 restoration. The Arcturus hegemony, for instance, recently regained limited faster-than-light capability. They use it to help transport medical supplies to worlds they once conquered. The reality of his situation finally settled over Zexthor like a heavy cloak. His empire, built on conquest and domination, hadn't just been defeated, It had been rendered obsolete. The galaxy operated under rules he hadn't known existed, governed by principles his people would need to learn. "How long?" he asked quietly. "That depends entirely on you," Drake replied. "The fastest rehabilitation we've seen took 50 years. The longest, well, some are still working on it centuries later, but everyone progresses eventually. The universe has a way of teaching humility." A new alarm sounded, not the harsh klaxons of the Dominion, but a gentle chime. Through the viewport, Zexthor watched a new fleet arrive in a cascade of quantum transitions. Their ships bore markings he recognized from intelligence reports. The Vega Consortium, another expanding empire that had likely just discovered Earth's trap. "Ah, your new neighbors have arrived," Chen smiled. "Perhaps you'd like to help them adjust. After all, you've just learned these lessons yourself." Standing there, watching another proud empire come to terms with the same revelations he had faced, Zexthor felt something unexpected: hope. Not for conquest or dominion, but for something greater. His people had an opportunity to become part of something larger than empire, to learn what humanity had learned centuries ago. "Director Chen," he said finally, his tendrils moving in a gesture of submission and acceptance, "I believe we're ready to begin our first lesson." "Excellent choice, Admiral," she replied. "Welcome to the first day of your civilization's rehabilitation. Remember this moment, because in a few centuries, if you continue to progress, you might find yourselves standing where we do, as guardians rather than conquerors, protectors rather than predators."